Now we'd like to start thematic track 4. First, Executive Director of ERCA, Mr. Kawakami, will make the opening remarks.
Thank you very much. First of all, I thank IGES for giving us such a valuable opportunity. As mentioned in the purpose of ISAP 2021, we would strongly agree that we are living in an era in which various issues should be solved in an integrated manner and with various actors collaborating. And I think it is probably the first time that Environmental Restoration and Conservation Agency introduces the research results of environmental policy at such an influential and important international symposium. We'd like to express our sincere gratitude to IGES President Takeuchi, Executive Director Takahashi, and all other my former colleagues. In Japan, there is a research system called Environment Research and Technology Development Fund that supports environmental research conducted by universities, research institutions, etc. In this research, we are promoting R&D in almost the entire environmental field. In 2018, the Ministry of the Environment transferred fund allocation affairs to ERCA. Since then, we have been striving to improve the convenience of researchers by firmly inheriting what should be inherited and devising what should be devised. After such practical experience, I think we are now in the second stage. As the second stage, we will place the social implementation of research results and international expansion as important pillars, and aim to have a concrete impact on the real economy and social life. Thus, we'd like to start the challenge. In recent years, we have also been focusing on training young researchers. And in order to solve the biggest problem, our climate crisis, we support the awareness and the feeling of the younger generation who will live in the future. That is important, and ERCA supports IDEA in its research program. Now, today's session, we will take up 3 studies conducted by young researchers that contribute to solution of climate change and SDGs. The first is lifestyle change and environmental policy with an innovative integrated evaluation model that enhances the feasibility of decarbonization by 2050. Second, for ammonia, we propose an innovative process that simultaneously performs seawater desalination, power generation, and ammonia synthesis using the solar energy in the desert. The third is original research that supports the creation of local SDGs by local governments. Through these studies, young promising researchers will propose solutions to the problem of climate change and SDGs. As a moderator, we'd like to express our deep gratitude to Professor Emeritus Dr. Yasuoka of the University of Tokyo. He is a chairman of the Committee for Promoting Environmental Research and Technology Development Fund. We thank him for his very kind consent to the session moderator, backed by his huge knowledge and variety of experience of these issues. Finally, I'd like to extend my greetings and the hope that this session will be one of the triggers for future chemical reactions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kawakami. Now we will have greetings from Mr. Fukushima, Director of General Policy Division from Ministry of the Environment.
I'm Takehiko Fukushima, Head of General Affairs Division, Ministry of the Environment, Japan. On behalf of our ministry, I'd like to say a few words at the start of this session. The Ministry of the Environment conducts research and development projects in all areas of the environmental field, with the aim of accumulating scientific knowledge and promoting technological development, which are indispensable for promoting environmental policy. Specifically, in the areas of integration, climate change, resources, coexistence with nature, and ensuring safety, we will present administrative needs and make public solicitations そしてプロポーザーズ from a wide range of industry, academia, private government research institutes, use outside experts, and so on. We carry out research projects that have been adopted after being examined by the committees that are composed. Since its inception, in total, 850 studies have been carried out, and results such as environmental policy practice, discussions at councils of our history, implementation in society, and contribution to solving problems in the concrete form being obtained. In year 2016, the functions related to open recruitment and screening were transferred to the Environmental Restoration and Conservation Agency. And we recognize that the system is being improved by listening to the voices of researchers. Today, I'm very much looking forward to discussing the results of such environmental policy contribution type research under the moderation of Professor Yasuoka. Lastly, I'd like to express my gratitude to IGS President Dr. Takeuchi, IGS Director Mr. Takahashi, and everyone involved for giving us such an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We will move to presentation of environmental research and panel discussion session. From now on, Professor Emeritus Yasuoka, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Ms. Aizawa. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now I would like to start the presentation session. I'm Yoshifumi Yasuoka. It is my great honor to chair this session. Before starting the presentations, let me introduce the agenda of this session. First, I would ask three young researchers to give presentation, maybe in 10 minutes each. After three presentations, we would welcome short questions for just clarification. The discussion itself will be done in the interactive session after the presentation session. We welcome questions and comments from the audiences online. So let's start the presentation session. The first speaker is Professor Fujimori of Kyoto University. Professor Fujimori, are you ready now?
Yes, I am. Can you see my screen and can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can. Please start.
Okay, thank you very much. So my name is Shinichiro Fujimori. I'm associate professor at Kyoto University. I'm going to talk briefly about my current research, which is about climate change mitigation and its SDG implications. And I'm going to take an example of SDG 1 poverty implications caused by climate change mitigations. So what we are doing is that we use a computer simulation model and inform climate change mitigation related information, like how much cost do we need to pay and what kind of system transformations are needed. And we deliver such kind of information to policy or decision makers. And sometimes we derive implications of policy implementation. For example, we have very recently NDC updates in COP26, where we have a more ambitious emissions target than before. And we can estimate, for example, the cost of such an aggressive climate policies. And we also show like energy system is quite needed to be changed. And we usually quantify the scenarios until 2050, 30, 50, or 2100. And global Asia, Japan, other relevant countries are covered. And this is a slide which illustrates overall of our modeling platform. It's really complicated. And so let me briefly talk about it. So we have atmospheric environment, human system, and a terrestrial environment. And so our central main theme is climate, how the climate would be changed, and to design our human system here, energy system, household, and agriculture and land use system needs to be changed. Therefore, we model by using economic rationales and put them into a computer simulation model. And we also have some social implications like health, poverty, food security, and so on and so on. And therefore, we can derive some SDG-related information from our modeling platform. And I'll be giving an example of poverty here later. And before going that story, let me briefly talk about what we are now required to stabilize the climate. So this figure shows a kind of illustrated examples how to achieve the 1.5 degree climate stabilization. And here we have 4 examples here. It's only an illustrative example. So we have much more diverse options to achieve certain climate target. But let me briefly review this part. So left-hand side, this is a global CO2 emission trajectories, and we are now here. And as you might have already known, we need a very steep emissions reductions in the next 20 or 30 years. And this scenario shows very, very rapid emissions reductions, steep reductions until 2050, and almost reaches zero at mid-century. And not so going deeper side of the negative emission side. On the other hand, there is scenario which shows relatively modest emissions in the near term, emissions reductions, but at the end, it goes very deep negative emissions. There are now controversial discussions now how we can realize this negative emissions and so on. But anyway, this negative emissions can be realized by a biomass plus CCS technology, which is so-called BECCS. Some of you might have heard. And biomass is storing the carbon from atmosphere, and which if we capture that carbon into underground, then it realizes the negative emissions. So this this picture shows the energy system changes over this century, and the left-hand side shows the current trend scenario, whereas right-hand side shows the 2 degree consistent, or we might be able to interpret this as a 1.5 degree consistent scenario. And as you can see easily, there is a very drastic changes in these scenarios. And so one part is here. The fossil fuels are dominant in the current trend scenarios at the end of century, while mitigation scenarios goes very small shares. Even they exist, they need to install CCS, which is colored by this one, gray and light red and so on. The other one is renewable energy increases. Bioenergy, solar and wind, they have almost half of the energy sources. And a big part of the this renewable energy can be dominated by bio or energy plus CCS. And final feature is energy consumption reduction. As you might be able to imagine, we need energy savings. And from that scenario, we can also derive some other social aspects. And I'm going to talk about the poverty implications. So we also model the inter-country or intra-country income distributions. And here we have a population under extreme poverty in 2030. There are some countries which have a large population in under extreme poverty. It's an estimate for 2030. And even we see the ratio of that extreme poverty to total population African countries are very highlighted here. And under the climate mitigation, you might have already heard about carbon pricing or carbon taxes. In Japan, we already have carbon taxes, although it's small scale now. But to achieve the emissions reductions drastically, we need some of the implicit or explicit measures of the carbon pricing. And if we do by carbon taxes, then we might have a very large amount of carbon tax revenue. And we wonder whether that carbon tax might be helpful to resolve the poverty. And if we transfer that carbon tax revenue, how much we need to for helping the poverty. And to address that question, we quantify the amount of carbon taxes and amount of money which needs to be alleviating poverty. And finally, we take the comparison between these two. And we find that in developed countries, mainly, we have a huge amount of carbon taxes, whereas the poverty gap, which is a measure of indicator of poverty, they are located in African. And we compare by this graph, we can easily see that carbon tax revenue in global total is very huge in 2030. And then poverty amount is quite small. And here is a list of countries showing the poverty, large poverty like Nigeria, India, and so on. And we sort the carbon tax revenue amount from the top countries like China, United States, India, and so on. So you can see if we transfer the money to very poor countries, it can resolve the poverty. I wouldn't say it's enough of ideal solutions, but we can interpret that climate change mitigation actions by implementing the carbon tax would have a great potential to resolve other societal problems. And so this is the summary and final remarks of my presentation. We are doing a modeling of global human and environmental interactions, mainly putting a main focus on climate change, but have a wide range of social or environmental issues. And we briefly saw that there are challenges in emission reductions, like we need to have drastic changes in the energy system, shifting towards renewable energies and saving the energies and pushing away the fossil fuels. And we also finally see that there can be some other side effects which might be intended or unintended. But anyway, there will be a synergy and a trade-offs in our climate mitigation actions. So therefore, I would recommend to enhance the synergetic effects and deal with trade-offs smartly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Fujimori. Well, very much challenging topic. The poverty would be very much serious due to the climate change, but it is not so easy to tackle these issues in the research itself. In particular, for the young people, not so easy. You challenge very good point. Later, we would like to discuss on your research itself. Okay.
Thank you very much.
So please wait for discussions. If you have any short question, please send it to Secretariat with Q&A tool. Now let's move on the next presentation. I'm sorry, today we have more than 200 audience people in this session. There are so many questions, so we would like to rush to the end. So let's move on to the next presentation. Now I'd like to invite Professor Ogawa of Kyoto University he would talk on the new energy system in the future. So, Professor Ogawa, please.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your kind introduction. And this is Takaya Ogawa. Now I'm currently assistant professor in Kyoto University. Nice to meet you. Today, I will talk about the sustainable and economical production scheme of water and electricity and ammonia nexus. It will be produced by seawater and sunlight in desert below 0 meter sea level. Okay. Let me start explain the background. Okay. Basically, so electricity from renewable energy is very important for the reduction of CO2 emission. And actually, cheap electricity based on sunlight is getting feasible. For example, 1.04 cents per kilowatt hour. It's done in Saudi Arabia with very large scale, 600 megawatt per megawatt. It's in this area. Actually, it's getting feasible, and the arid semi-arid region is very suitable for the large scale to obtain this huge sunlight. But excess electricity is wasted in the daytime. The electricity can be generated only in daytime, so it's wasted. And also the demand of electricity in a desert is not so much huge. So battery is useful, but generally too expensive. So we cannot use that so much. And also arid semi-arid region normally require water and food rather than electricity. So I suggest electricity can be utilized for the production of potable water and ammonia. Ammonia is very important chemical because it's artificial fertilizer and a promising energy carrier. So I propose water, electricity, ammonia nexus. I named it WESKM using seawater and sunlight in arid semi-arid region. If we, when we integrate the process to produce these three, total number of process is reduced. And also energy efficiency will be enhanced by reducing waste heat. So we can expect high profitability. Let me explain one example of W scheme. Actually, there's many patterns of W scheme, but let me introduce one. So please assume pipeline to convert seawater to a desert. Actually, maybe a very big assumption, but please assume first. In that case, seawater can be evaporated by sunlight, and we can get water vapor, and it goes to steam turbine and generate electricity. It's a solar thermal power generation. At the same time, we can get distilled water. So, and then we can obtain hydrogen from water electricity using the distilled water and electricity, and we can perform ammonia synthesis using the hydrogen and the nitrogen in the air. So these three can be obtained. Actually, in this scheme, in this pattern, water and electricity can be generated in the same time. So total number of process is reduced. And also the waste heat in ammonia synthesis and solar thermal power generation can be utilized for each other. And then energy efficiency should be increased. So that is why we expect the high profitability. But as I said in the beginning, a pipeline should be constructed to transport seawater to the city. So now I focus on desert below 0 meter sea level. It's around Dead Sea and around Dead Sea in Jordan. Let me explain the background of Jordan. The population of Jordan is increased very suddenly. It was 2 million at 2012 and increased to almost 10 million at 2017. It's just because of the refugees from surrounding countries. So we can say there's a huge demand for water and food. In addition, the important thing is pipeline will be constructed for Red Sea, Dead Sea Canal project. It's a project to construct the pipeline from Red Sea to Dead Sea and introduce seawater to the Dead Sea. It will be financed by the World Bank. Why they try to do that is Dead Sea is getting dried up and the sea level is getting down and down, and then the surrounding environmental will be very destructing. So that's why they try to finance about that. So if the pipeline is constructed, there's a very fascinating location, a lot of sunlight and infinite seawater. Actually, 1/8 of land area in Jordan receives sunlight of 23 petawatt-hour per year. It's almost equal to electricity consumption in the world at 2019. And then so there's a bunch of sunlight, and could be a potential to export ammonia as energy carrier, not only for fertilizer. So maybe possible to change actually. Jordan maybe can be an oil producing country like that, and change the energy in the world, energy system in the world. And addition, no energy requirement for seawater transportation is also very advantageous here, because so water transportation is also energy has a huge energy loss, so we can reduce it. And also, we don't need to care about the cost of constructing the pipeline because of this project. So these are the merit to construct here. Now I'm trying to investigating the many patterns of WS scheme, like using the reverse osmosis or photovoltaic and kind of this, and I try to optimize it and estimate the cost and the CO2 emission. And the cost can be estimated using the process simulation software like Aspen Plus like this, and we have to use this equation to estimate cost. And the cost is determined by the size and the total number of processes. This can be estimated by this simulation software. What I'm doing is here, and also I try to consider about the other locations, such as city facing to a desert and to the desert and city, and also other desert and 0 meter sea level, such as Lake Erie in Australia. And also we are examining the new catalyst for ammonia synthesis, because recently ammonia synthesis catalyst developed very significantly, especially in Japan. So it can be a help. It can be a help to establish WS scheme in a real society. So I also examining these catalysts. And this is a future plan, and what I will do in the future. I will do agriculture at Gulf of Aqaba, because we got the recommendation from researcher in University of Jordan, because that pilot plant of WS scheme should be constructed at Gulf of Aqaba. It's around this Gulf of Aqaba is here in Jordan. It's a water intake point of Red Sea Dead Sea Canal. So it means we don't need to wait for the complete of construction of a pipeline. So we can do that from now on. So I will try to demonstrate agriculture at this price and estimate the benefit of crop increased by water and ammonia, and compare that with cost of water and ammonia supply based on W scheme, and try to check the is it really beneficial or not. Actually, the cost will be determined by the size. So we will estimate how much size is important to be beneficial, and then we can compare the population in Aqaba and also this scale, and I will try to check is it very practical or not. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Gawa. Well, this presentation is also exciting. The ammonia relevant technologies are very, very hot topic nowadays, but not so easy. You are tackling at Jordan.
Yes.
Yeah, very much international project. Later, let's have discussion together.
Thank you so much.
Now let's move on the third presentation by Professor. Third presentation was Professor Kawakubo. He is talking on SDGs, local SDGs. So please, Kawakubo.
Thank you very much. My name is Shinkokubo from Hosei University, Japan. Today, I would like to present my research on solving regional issues using the SDGs as a driving force. The research I am about to introduce is focused on Japan, but the methodology is universally applicable, and not only to Asian countries, but to the entire world. I would now like to begin my presentation. First of all, in this slide, I will introduce the research background. As you know, the 2030 agenda, including the SDGs, was adopted at the United Nations Sustainable Development Summit in September 2015. 2015 was an amazing year, and 3 months after the 2030 agenda was adopted, the famous Paris Agreement was also adopted. Since 2015, our world has begun to transform. Shown here are the SDGs. I am sure you have seen and heard more and more about them lately. These were set as global goals to be achieved by 2030, and all stakeholders in every country are taking action to achieve them. What is important going forward is to follow up and review whether or not these actions are delivering results. This slide shows the framework of the SDGs. The SDGs have a three-tiered structure of goals, targets, and indicators. The goals represent the vision that the international community should aim for in the future. And the targets represent the concrete actions that we should take to achieve the goals. Indicators are used to measure the degree of achievement and implementation of these goals and targets. The SDGs that I have introduced so far tend to be thought of as something distant or irrelevant to us because they are global goals. This is where the concept of local SDGs become important. I think it is important to connect the global SDGs to the issues around us, surrounding us, and think about what we can do in our own communities. Making things personal or local issues in this way is essential to achieving the SDGs. We need to recognize again the importance of famous motto, think globally and act locally. However, we face several challenges in taking actions that contribute to achieving the SDGs. The first of these challenges is the lack of follow-up and review. Many people and organizations declare that they are committed to achieving the SDGs, but only few of them follow up and review what results they have been achieved. I think it will become more and more important to conduct follow-ups and reviews using appropriate indicators in the near future. But we face another major challenge here. That is the lack of appropriate indicators that are essential for conducting follow-up and review. Here is some description of Goal 11 as an example. Make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Up to this point, I think most people can easily understand it without much discomfort. However, some people may feel strange about the content of the targets and indicators. For example, target 11.1 and indicator 11.1.1 mention upgrading slums. But since there are not many slums in our country, this is often misunderstood as something that is not relevant to us. However, if you read the 2030 agenda carefully, you will see that it is important to revise the targets and indicators as appropriate for each country and region. This is what we need to work on in the near future. So as a researcher, we set out to localize the indicators since it is written that the government of each country is responsible for setting the targets. Localization of indicators is a process of making global indicators usable locally, taking into account the situation of each country. As I mentioned earlier, although there are not many slums in our country, still there are a small number of people who are homeless and in need of a home in our country. And the number of those has been counted. So we decided to set the number of homeless people as a local indicator. This is just an example. After developing the local indicators, we use them to evaluate the actual situation of local governments in Japan from the 17 perspectives of the SDGs. Since the scales and units of each indicator are different, we applied a kind of normalization written in this slide. This is called minimum maximum normalization. The most desirable municipalities in our country were given a score of 100, while the least desirable municipalities were given a score of 0 point. We evaluated in total 1,788 municipalities across Japan based on more than 200 indicators using the method I mentioned earlier. The evaluation results were compiled into a database and a system to visualize the results using a geographic information system, GIS, which was constructed in this research. In order to return these research results to society, we have developed the local SDG platform. This is an online platform which is available to the public. This is a platform that allows local governments to register, search, and share their initiatives and best practices for achieving the SDGs. Also, English version is available. So if you have time, please visit this platform and look at the situation in Japan. The platform has a very simple user interface that allows you to find the information you want by simply selecting the type of information you want to see. In this way, by simply selecting a local government, you can check the status of that local governments from the 17 perspectives of the SDGs. You can also check the status of your local government for each goal by each indicators. This is a detailed information. You can see one by one using local indicators. It also includes, the platform also includes interviews with local government officials who are pioneering efforts to achieve the SDGs. I believe that sharing the experiences, difficulties, and successes of those in charge is a shortcut to achieving the SDGs. So please take a look if you have chance. Why did you decide to work on the SDGs? What challenges did you face? What challenges did you face and how did you overcome them? These are just a few of the points discussed in detail in these interviews. Thankfully, the platform has been now widely utilized and awareness of the SDGs has expanded over the past few years. For example, Osaka Prefecture conducted evidence-based policymaking using the data on our platform, which led to the development of their future vision. This initiative was highly evaluated and won the government's Japan SDGs Award. We also received the Minister of the Environment Award. This is very thankful points. From now on, I would like to make further use of the data on this platform. What you are seeing now is a visualization of which local government information is being searched by users of this platform. For example, we can restrict the vector to a single direction and visualize the result. This also makes it possible to find out which local initiatives are getting more attention from the national users. And finally, I will introduce another new platform. We have currently started to develop a new online platform named Provo. This was motivated by a request from a user of the Localisation platform to develop a platform that could be used by all stakeholders for purposes other than solving local issues. The new platform is available to all individuals and organizations, including industry, government, and academia. A number of stakeholders are already posting their SDG-related initiatives and activities on the online platform. Please take a look at it when you have time, and please bring your insight for the creation of collective knowledge to develop sustainable future. So thank you. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Kawakubo. SDGs are very popular now in Japan. We can see the term SDGs every day in the newspapers or TV screens. Still, it is not so easy to promote the SDGs up to 2030. 2030 is a dead limit. So we have to do something up to a couple of years ago before the 2030. Your activities will help the government to report the Japanese status to United Nations. That's now let's discuss later. Thank you very much. Well, young people are very much punctual. They kept time. So we have a lot of time now. And up to now, we have two questions from audience. Let me introduce you these two questions. The first question the questions are to Professor Ogawa. The first question is, I think your research will be the target of international ESG investment. How do you think? This is the first question. Okay, could you answer to that
from
question?
First question? Okay, thank you for your question. Actually, yes, hopefully it should be the target of this investment because the cost for pipeline is very huge and it's impossible without such a finance from the government. So definitely it have to be we have to investment from the government, and also it should be very international because as for Jordan, Dead Sea is surrounded by the Palestine and Israel, and it's very important for the policy. And also Jordan itself is surrounded by other countries such as Saudi Arabia, and also they accept many refugees from the other countries. So this, if we do the collaboration, international ESG investment, it will be very beneficial for other countries. It should be international. So yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Okay, thank you very much. The second question is research on ammonia electric synthesis is being conducted in many organizations in Japan. Do you have any plans to collaborate with those organizations?
Okay, thank you for question again. Yes, definitely yes. To be honest, originally I'm I'm chemist basically, and I focused on proton conducting material, and I would like to utilize it also. It means proton conducting material is very important for ammonia electric synthesis, So I would like to do it by myself also, and I think I can collaborate and try to introduce the many experimental data for my system, and I can evaluate. So yes, I will do the collaboration.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, the presentations were very clear. So at this moment, we have these two questions. Of course, the audience may send questions or comments in the interactive session after this presentation session. I would like to encourage the audience or people to send a message through Q&A tool. Okay. If you have questions, please send it to the Secretariat. Now we have no questions up to now. Let's move on the interactive session. Is it okay for you, professors? Are you ready to have interaction with them? Okay. At this moment, we don't have comments or questions from the floor, the audience. I have prepared questions for young researchers because climate change or SDGs are very much complicated system. And for the young researchers in particular, it is not so easy to tackle. So I have 3 questions. Okay. What kind of hardships or distresses do you have in doing climate change or SDGs researches as a young researcher? In particular, the hardships or distresses, if you have these, please respond frankly. Okay. The second question is, how did you develop relationships with society and implement your research result in society? The essence of this question is that the climate change research or SDGs research have a very close relation with society. But for the usual researchers, it is not easy to have a relation with society or with stakeholders. Even for us, even for 60 or 70 years old researchers, it is not easy. But you are tackling with these issues. So if you have any comments or questions or know-how, please show us, frankly. The third question, do you or did you have any idea to share your research result with international community, in particular in Asia and Pacific? Because Asia and Pacific is in the title of the forum itself. So I prepared this question. If you have, but I will interrupt you if questions or comments from the floor anytime. But before that, please answer to the 3 questions. You may select one to answer easily, or you may respond to all of these questions. Maybe the presentation sequence would be better. So, Professor Fujimori, are you ready to respond this question?
Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay, thank you.
So let me start from the first question. And there are several things that I would like to mention to this question. And so firstly, our research is quite closely related to the real societies or policy movements, and we have to update our scenarios. For example, as I said, COP26, there are many things happened there, and there can be many research questions based on certain international policies. And then so first of all, how to catch up with the latest societal stations or political stations would be one of the challenges that we have to face, and we have to balance, to answer to the immediate societal requirement and our research resources, as well as we also have to be a scientist who needs to make scientific outcomes. And it is not always the case where certain answering to the societal requirement and scientific achievements are not same, right? And so to balance that relationships is one of the difficulties for now. But I'm trying to do as much as possible. And talking about our careers, more younger ages, like 5 years ago, I was not so putting much a focus on reacting to the real societal movement. And so, for example, 5 years ago, there was a Paris Agreement, which was quite huge landmarks to change the climate change policies, right? And at that time, I didn't put so much effort on, delivering key messages of the Paris Agreement and how we should move the society and how researchers should deliver the information to the appropriate persons. But now gradually shifting, I have been doing pure research activities over the last decade, and then gradually having more interest in giving information to the actual decision makers who can change the real society. And so that's one aspect. The other thing is we are in this research field, at least in this research field, there is a very hard competitions right now, and many of the researchers are coming to research field, and in particular, European countries, for example, taking the Germany case. From my view, there are many research funds in this list from the Germany and also European commissions, and many very talented people are gathering in this field. And under such a condition, we have limited resources, and how we should make a very sharp researches and make strong messages to the world is one of the concerns for me. And almost every day I am thinking about how to make interesting, important researches, something like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I understand. Okay. Now let's going back to let's coming back to this point later. Now, okay, if you have answers to these questions, please.
Okay. Actually, I'm very looking forward to hear the many opinions from other researchers too. So it was very interesting. Actually, and I would like to say my opinion also. I think the research related to SDGs is very multidisciplinary, and it's very hard to understand by only one expertise reviewer. So the focus is reviewer when we submit a paper. I think it's very difficult to understand one by one, and so usually reviewer should be composed by many areas, research areas. One guy may understand the importance, but it may be very difficult to understand for others. So at that time, it's very hard. It's hard time. It's tough time to make them understood. So that was also one of the very important difficulty to the research, I think. And it also can be also same to the application to the grant. I think it's also difficult to make be easily understood. So also it's reviewers. I think this is a difficulties.
Yeah, I understand. You are tackling these issues.
I'm trying to just make it very
you
easy.
are interested in this field.
Yes, but I just want to make it clear to her by English writing. But I'm sure.
In the presentation title, you used the term nexus.
Yes.
Well, the energy issues or SDGs issues, it is included in SDGs. Energy issues is included in SDGs. We have lots of trade-off relations among the goals or targets. How do you solve? Well, of course, it's a very tough question. But if you have any idea or comments on this point, maybe later I will ask Professor Kawakubo. So if you have any idea.
Actually, okay, let me answer quickly.
Maybe you may focus on the energy issue, the water, electricity, or ammonia trade-off. Of course, you have a cost trade-off.
Yes.
So how do you resolve this trade-off issue?
Yeah, actually, there's a definitely trade-off relations. It's very difficult to solve itself. But actually, what I'm doing is just suggest a model should be utilized for very easily. And I would like to ask also the local parameters. There's many parameters, and I cannot optimize by myself. So it's very huge. So I would like to suggest to the model which should be utilized for us. And yeah, maybe ask them to optimize it.
Okay.
Locally.
Let's come back to that point later. So how about Professor Kawakubo?
Thank you very much. The challenges which Dr. Fujimori sensei and Dr. Ogawa sensei are facing, I am facing as well. So this might be popular problems. So there is little more to say for me, but the biggest problem for me as a young researcher is that I have so much work to do in a university right now, besides lectures. So I have little time.
Something like business stuff?
Yeah, business stuff and reporting. Yeah, okay. That's real. Okay. Yeah, I'm reporting to universities and other things. Yeah. So I have little time to spend on research. This is the biggest problem. I think many of you can understand this point. And this may not be because I am a young researcher, but because of my research theme, the sustainability research was not well understood in early stage for 10 years ago. Nowadays, the SDGs become common. So sustainability research, importance of sustainability research are now understood. But I have hard time in my early career stage. And thankfully, after the adoption of the 2030 agenda, the significance of sustainability research are now better understood. But now I'm facing another problem because the image that my research is just a fashion trend. So people says you are just doing a fashionable research and you have to focus on more deep research. And that's my another challenges now facing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, SDGs is a fashion right now.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
I also have a kind of a sympathy with that comment. As I presented in my presentation, I am doing a modeling originally coming from just climate change mitigation, mainly focusing on energy system plus land use change. But after the SDG came out, many of the research projects are on the track of the SDG implementations or something like that. And then our focus would also have shifted to broader research topics. And today I just shown the poverty implications, but I did similar kind of things in hunger, water consumption, health, and waste management, and so on. And the modeling itself would be actually not so very deep, and I'm not an expert of, for example, waste management, and we simply implement the naive representations of waste generation and treatment and so on. And then I'm feeling like I'm becoming a great generalist, but I'm not an expert of any fields. And I feel something like, well, who am I? And when I go to for example, workshop mainly in energy system models, then I am not an expert of the energy modeler. Therefore, I'm explaining like myself as I'm an economic modeling, and my expert is energy plus economy and agriculture and so on. And then I move on to the next workshop where agriculture economics are gathering. Then I am playing like an energy system modeler. So just my reaction to from my experiences.
Yeah, your point is
no, but it's I think society may need such kind of people. I compromise and I convince myself that somebody may need my like my person, and it would be valuable at the end. I hope so.
I definitely feel sympathy with you. Yeah, I have many similar experience. I now try to combining the ammonia synthesis and other techniques, but actually I cannot say this is my expertise or other things. So yeah, it's happened. So I'm afraid when I fail this project, what should I do?
Yeah, Professor Fujimori's point is now very important. When I was young, almost 50 years ago, I was advised to concentrate in one specific research fields or discipline, and please don't go out for other field. Well, that was a Japanese way of education. In the high school, not high school, university or the master course or doctor course. But nowadays, the issues around you are very much diverse. You cannot solve any problem in one discipline. So you are tackling with very difficult issues. I understand that. But at the same time, you have to, when you teach your students, how do you manage the advice or teach classes for them?
Classes.
In the class, you have some specific discipline-oriented class, right? No.
Yeah, right. So, for example, just let me explain how I teach in my atmospheric environmental engineering class, undergraduate school. And so I start from the general, global environmental issues, maybe taking two classes or so. First 2 times are spent for general history of the global environment. A very wide range of topics are covered, and then focusing on climate change and air pollutions, the basic understanding of the climate change and how we model, for example, atmospheric circulation and so on. So in that sense, starting from the broader area and then going to the details, that is the basic stances. But to educate my laboratory students, for example, master or doctor students, I am not doing like, starting from the broad research areas. And as Yasuoka Sensei mentioned, I let each student focus on individual topic, and maybe, taking 3 to 5 years into the single research discipline would be beneficial for them to get general scientific methods and how we should do in the scientific as in scientific researchers. And then I would encourage them to expand gradually into the broader area.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, please.
In my opinion, I think active learning is becoming more and more important in this complicated situation. In past, when I was a student, it is we studied how to reach the answers and solutions in more effective way. But nowadays, we don't know what is solution or where the solutions are hiding. So we have to look around and study many fields and collaborate with other people. So I think more and more active learning will be important in how do you say, in the classes in the university.
Okay, the education system is very important, but today's topic is not on that. So let's discuss about something on the SDGs. All of three speakers, you mentioned the SDGs relevant issues, but SDGs is a UN-driven goal and targets. And the UN asks the government, each government, each country should respond to that up to 2030. But there are so many initiatives, the country level or regional level. So how do you integrate your activities in Japan or in any area to the government level, country level index or the data to report UN? This is not an easy question. But as for poverty, this is a very difficult target. But you need data. But in Japan, it is not so difficult to collect data, but in Asian countries, very tough. So how do you contribute to the country level report through your studies? Professor Fujimori first, do you have any answer to this question?
Well, I'm not sure whether I can answer, but let me respond to that. As you mentioned, for Japan, the statistical information is quite well organized and easy to access, and it will be easy to make a model for Japan. And for developing countries, it's still very difficult to access such detailed information. And so what we are doing is there are two ways. So one is accepting the students from individual countries. They may be able to access to the original data, for example, household survey, which is not accessible from the outside of the countries, but some can be possible. And so they can get the actual data, and we can process and analyze it. And we may be able to make a feedback to individual countries what kind of information is really needed. They may have in the future, they could have survey, a new survey framework, which is really important to make an advancement. And the other way, and the other thing is that we are doing a future scenario or quantifications, and thus it may not be directly related to the current status of the SDG, for example, or the SDG poverty implication. I'm just taking the information from the, for example, World Bank and model it for future perspective. But it can also inform them how certain information can be used and what would be the multi-areas implications from the one policy aspect. And that could also enhance them to have an interest or a focus on new area, which is not well covered by the national statistics, but can be covered in the future.
Thank you. Now we have a question or a comment from the floor, from audience. That question is it possible to apply the WEA research in dry zone of the tropical countries? Is there any threshold for this research, such as temperatures, humidity, and rainfall? This may be for... Yes, okay.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. Let me answer about that. Actually, there's a threshold, and the important thing is actually the cost. Is it beneficial or not? And the important factor for that is elevation of the city or dry zone, and also the sunlight as amount of sunlight. So we cannot say definite thing, specific thing. We have to know exactly the amount of the values. But yeah, there's a threshold, and basically it should be possible to do that even in the dry zone in the tropical countries. Humidity is not so much important for much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for question, and thank you very much for answer. Thank you. Another question. Question to Dr. Kawakubo. I think your research is a very useful system to promote SDGs activities for the local government in Japan. Do you have any plan to extend your result to the local governments in Asian countries for the international contribution of Japan?
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, I'm planning to extend my research to Asian countries. That's why I just developed English version of the local SDG platform. Now you can access to my platform and you can see it in English version. But the GIS, geographical information system, is only restricted to Japan at this moment. So I want to expand the area of the coverage area with collaboration with every researchers in Asian countries. So if you are interested in my research, I'm very, very welcome to collaborate with you and other researchers who are now listening to this.
There should be an audience who are interested in your activities in local level. Every country should report to UN by 2030. So they have a same issue.
Yeah, local context may be different, but the facing problem is very, very common. So yeah, I think we have to share the problems or difficulties and how to overcome those difficulties in the future. Yes.
Thank you very much. If you have any comments from the floor, please use Q&A function, please. At this moment, there is no question. So I'd like to go back to the question to presenters. As for the, the Professor Fujimori's presentation is on model simulation, primarily based on the AIM model. But if you want to extend these ideas to other countries, you have to collaborate with the researchers in that country, and you have to collect data. So is it easy for you to have collaboration with researchers linked to the government?
Well, so far, partly easy, partly not easy. And as you might have known, AIM has a long history from 1980s, and the original founders have a great interest in making a network in Asian countries, and that was succeeded greatly. And we have, and I am in the network already. So I can, for example, easily contact with Thai professors or Indonesian professors who have strong relationships with the government. And so theoretically it's possible, but it's although under certain conditions, it's not always happening. And so there should be a sort of more catalysis to have tight networks or solid relationships with them, and but this year's case, for example, Indonesian professor inquired us to send a master course student to study here, and therefore that can be one of the seeds for the futures, and they can have relationships with the government, and then it will be much tighter connections for us to reach to the local government. And without using that network so far, it will be very difficult for me to reach the individual countries' government. Therefore, I think it's still limited. But I can say that there is a potential. If I have such a focus, then I may have a different strategy to go to different countries and search the new researchers who should have an influence on that country. But at this stage, I have not yet had certain activities. Therefore, yeah, I will have in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, Professor Fujimori's researches are based on the existing networks in Asian regions. The professors in the past developed that networks, so they can use, he can use that network. How about Professor Kawakubo or Professor Ogawa? Do you have any such kind of networks with other countries in Asian Pacific regions? You have already. But,
yeah, luckily I have some network in Jordan already, so not in the Asian Pacific, but yeah, I would like to expand to the Asian countries. So I try to,
okay.
To consider about that.
So how about Professor Kawaku? You mentioned that your system is open to other countries. So at this moment, you have a network.
Yeah, partly. I have already started collaborative research with Malaysian professors who are the Professor Ho, professor of UTM, but not many of researchers I have a collaboration with right now. So I want to expand the network. So this kind of events are very, very helpful for me to make another new collaborations for further research. So this kind, I hope ERCA and Ministry of Environment and any other people who concerning this event put forward, make forward, go forward for this kind of collaborative events. Thank you very much.
Yeah, in this session, more than 200 researchers are involved already, and they may want to have collaboration with you. So you are open now. Okay. Please send a message to them directly. Okay. Now we have 10 minutes. Now we better to wrap up the session. Wrap up is my duty. Okay, I will try to wrap up this session. Climate change research or SDGs research, as I mentioned, not easy, in particular for the younger people, since these researchers have to have relationships or networks with other sector people. And for the young people, it is very difficult to develop the networks by themselves. But we need the young people's very fresh ideas and fresh activities it is true. So we have to, we encourage you to join this research field. I repeated many times, climate change or SDGs, these researches are not easy. Any one single academic discipline cannot solve the problem. Any one single organization cannot solve the problem. Any one single country cannot solve the problem. That means we have to collaborate together. We need networks, and we have human relationships. So you have to develop these relationships by yourself. But I would say, we need a very fresh ideas, fresh activities by younger researchers. And it is our generation mission to integrate or to bridge your activities with other communities or with other countries. So this chance, opportunity in this forum itself is very good for us and good for audience. So I would encourage you again to continue your research, and please provide your fresh ideas and fresh activities to all of the people in the region and in the world. I do hope so. Okay, this is the tentative wrap up. Maybe Mr. Kawakami has some words for this closing.
Well, thank you very much indeed. It was quite interesting to know so-called frankly speaking talks among our young researchers. Although there's not so much that we can do to change your life in universities, but at least we'll do our best to modify our fund system so that you can make it more effective and more fruitful. So that's all from me, and thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. I'm sorry, there are two questions from audience. The first question is: do your evaluation that Japan has enough data mean compared to developing countries, or do you think you have enough information to tackle with SDGs? Maybe
me.
Yes, Professor Kawakubo.
Japan already have an well-established statistical information databases, but still we need more and more detailed data. In my research, I found that half of the global SDG indicators cannot be localized in Japan. We have to, how can I say, we have to modify or find out another alternative data to follow up and review our progress towards SDGs. So I think the problem is very common to your country and our country as well. So we have to further develop such kind of statistical data in the future.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I have, the time is over already. I am very sorry. So Mr. Kawakami has already mentioned the closing remarks. So I would return my microphone to Secretariat.
Thank you very much, Professor Emeritus Yasuoka. Now we will have the closing remarks from Mr. Morita, Deputy Director from ERCA.
Well then, this is the end of TT4. We hope that session will be the first step towards the next stage. The open call for 2023 is scheduled to start around September next year. If you are interested, please check the ERCA website. Thank you.